Charles Miller, a 7-year-old child, experienced a terrible accident with his mother. Unfortunately, his mother did not survive the injuries, leaving the boy alone. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any stories. It was a fateful, rainy night. It was late and raining heavily, but Charles and his mother, Ava, needed to get home. "Come on, sweetheart. I left your favorite food in the oven. We'll eat together when we get home," Ava said, as she buckled Charles into his car seat. This was their routine almost every day, and Charles would often fall asleep on the way home. They lived in the small town of Salem, while Ava worked in Atlanta, where the company headquarters were located. To be close to her son in case of emergencies, she enrolled Charles in a school near her office. With no other family nearby, Ava and Charles were very close. Their trips home were usually uneventful, but that night the rain was unusually heavy. Charles was startled by the noise of passing trucks, but everything seemed under control. Unfortunately, that proved to be wrong. Ava was driving cautiously while Charles slept in the back seat. That's when a truck driver, attempting a high-speed pass, collided with Ava's car. The vehicle was thrown off the road and overturned. Ava, still dazed and frightened, looked back for her son, but the seatbelt and car's position prevented her from seeing him. "Shh, sweetheart, it's over. We're okay," she tried to reassure the boy. It took about 30 minutes for help to arrive. The truck driver, responsible for the accident, was the one who called for assistance. He explained that he was trying to get home for his young daughter's birthday and had his vision impaired by the rain. It was during the medical assessment that they discovered Ava was seriously injured, requiring emergency surgery. Charles, scared and lost, watched as doctors hurried around his mother. One of the doctors, a newly graduated resident named James, tried to distract the boy. Are you enjoying the story? Then click the like button. "Hey kiddo, how about we get something to eat?" James suggested, pulling Charles away from the tense environment. Concerned for his mother, Charles asked if she would be okay. James, unsure of how to handle the situation, responded cautiously, avoiding making promises he couldn't keep. "Kid, my colleagues are doing their best for your mom. But don't worry, you'll be back home soon," he tried to reassure the boy. The following moments were filled with anguish for Charles, who felt increasingly lost amidst the chaos of the hospital. Doctors examined Charles and, to everyone's surprise, found no cause for concern with him. However, Ava was in critical condition. Concern for her son and the adrenaline of the moment may have masked her symptoms, as a serious internal hemorrhage was discovered, requiring emergency surgery. Meanwhile, Charles felt lost with all those doctors around his mother. James, the resident doctor, tried to comfort him as best as he could. "Hey kiddo, how about we get something to eat?" James suggested, trying to distract Charles from the distressing situation. Despite being worried about his mother, Charles accepted the food. During their conversation, James asked about Charles's father, but the boy replied that he had never met him and didn't know who he was. Charles's life changed drastically on that tragic night. With no father and no other close relatives, social services were called in, and Charles was placed in an orphanage. The first nights at the orphanage were tough for Charles. He felt out of place and sad, reminiscing about the happy moments he had with his mother. His last peaceful sleep had been inside the car, heading home. The memories of the accident haunted Charles at night. When he could finally sleep, Charles dreamed of his mother walking through the orphanage door to pick him up. He would wake up wrapped in that comforting feeling, only to be hit by the painful reality again. Charles closed himself off emotionally, avoiding interacting much with the other children at the orphanage. The older kids teased him, calling him a crybaby for thinking about his mother. "Hey Charles, still dreaming about your mom's ghost, huh? You better stop being such a crybaby and accept that she's dead and not coming back. No one's gonna want to adopt a crybaby like you." The staff seemed indifferent to the children's teasing and did nothing to stop it. They would take the children to the local park as an integration activity, but Charles always distanced himself from the group. Realizing the park was near the cemetery where his mother was buried, he preferred to visit her grave, keeping his promise to always visit. At the cemetery, Charles would confide in his mother, telling her about how difficult life was in the orphanage. Talking to her seemed to bring some comfort to the boy, as if his mother was there, listening and responding. Charles felt closer to her during these moments. He could even imagine what she would say and how she would laugh when he told her something funny. "Mom, I miss you so much. I have nothing here anymore. No one, and I'm not happy. I miss everything," Charles cried. "I want to disappear from this world, not exist anymore. I don't want to live without you. Take me with you. Take me," he shouted. Then a mysterious woman approached him. She noticed Charles crying and offered support. Introducing herself as Harper, she realized the boy was very sad and crying. She sat beside Charles and listened to him pour out his sadness and loneliness in the orphanage. Harper told Charles she was visiting her son's grave, who had also passed away, and offered comfort to the boy. They talked for a while, and Harper offered to take him back to the orphanage. Charles agreed, but before leaving the park, he found a wallet on the ground. Opening the wallet, Charles was shocked to see a large amount of money inside. He thought about how he could use that money to escape from the orphanage, but his conscience weighed heavily on him. Charles handed the wallet to the security guard, concerned for the owner who might be looking for it. The security guard thanked Charles for his honesty, as the wallet belonged to a park employee who had lost his end-of-year salary. This act of honesty surprised even Harper, who witnessed the boy's integrity. Charles returned to the orphanage with Harper, but he noticed that no one seemed to have noticed his absence. The other children teased him, but he remained firm in his decision to be honest. Shocked by the lack of attention from the staff, Harper left with a heavy heart and decided to enter a nearby church. In the church, Harper prayed for Charles to find a loving and welcoming family. In the following nights, Harper struggled to sleep properly. During a moment of insomnia, she had a vivid dream about her deceased son, which left her disturbed. She remembered an address he mentioned in the dream and decided to investigate. Sharing her experiences and the dream with her husband, he encouraged her to follow her instincts. They discovered that the address was real and led to a home for orphaned children, where Charles lived. Moved by the coincidence and emotional connections, they decided to visit the orphanage immediately. Upon arriving at the orphanage, they faced some resistance from the staff, but they managed to enter after a small bribe. Harper immediately recognized Charles, and their emotional reunion was witnessed by everyone in the room. As soon as Charles saw Harper, he ran towards her and hugged her. Harper's husband took advantage of the moment and started asking the boy some questions. "Hey, tell me, what was a child like you doing in the cemetery at that hour?" Charles replied, "Whenever I can, I go to the cemetery to talk to my mom, sir. I always tell her about my days here in the orphanage and how sad I am without her around. Many times I ask her to take me away from here, far away." That sentence broke Harper and her husband's hearts. After much thought and discussion, they decided to begin the adoption process for Charles. For months, they visited Charles regularly at the orphanage, ensuring he was well cared for and felt loved. Finally, the day of adoption arrived. Charles saw Harper and her husband in the orphanage reception and ran to embrace them, deeply moved. The embrace was a touching moment for everyone present, including the other children at the orphanage. Charles went home with his new family, and gradually his life began to transform. He started relating better to others and found comfort and security in the home that Harper and her husband provided for him. Harper expressed her gratitude for finding Charles and stated that her journey began at the church, where she prayed for a loving family for the boy. To her, meeting Charles was a revelation that this family could be hers. Together, Harper, her husband, and Charles visited the cemetery regularly, keeping the memory of their past lives alive. Charles lovingly tended to his mother's grave, while Harper honored her own son. As time passed, Charles found joy in new family traditions like Sunday lunches. He expressed gratitude for having a new family and believed his mother was present at every step of this journey. Watching Charles spin on the carousel, Harper and her husband felt that somehow their lives had been guided to this moment. The unlikely union of their stories formed a new, happy, and loving family. Charles, now surrounded by Harper and her husband's love and care, found hope and joy in his new home, where his past memories merged with the present, creating a fresh start for all. Subscribe to our channel, and until the next video. This next video appearing on the screen will also touch your heart.